I grew up in a haunted house. My family moved into a home in southeast Michigan when I was around 12 years old, and the home was very haunted. My first encounter was when I seen a woman in a blue dress standing in the hallway. My brother, who was 2 at the time, talked about the women in the blue dress as well, and my mom seen her often. We all had no idea we were seeing the same thing until months later when we all started talking about it. There was many spirits in this house, but the lady in the dress was a very kind spirit. There was also a very angry and mean spirit in this house. One time I was walking into the family room around 3 a.m. and everything on the desk, which was located right at the doorway, went flying across the room and something screamed, "Get out!" It was a very deep, masculine voice. I continued to get what I went into the room for, but the feel of the room was dark and I could feel something mad and staring at me. This was the scariest moment for me in that house. Some other instances that happened in the house was that I would wake up completely and neatly tucked into my bed. I asked everyone in the house and no one else did it, plus my door locked. If you had a candle lit, it would randomly go out. At night, you would hear cupboard doors opening and closing, and some mornings, every cupboard would be left open. You would hear weird noises all night, and clocks would sometimes move backwards, even without batteries. We had a 2-story garage, which was the most haunted place in the house, and when you were upstairs, you could hear what sounded like a bunch of people downstairs talking and laughing. You would have to turn up the music loud to drown it out. And when you were near the garage, outside or downstairs, you could hear the pool balls from the pool table smacking like someone was playing pool, and you could hear footsteps running around the wood floor. Whenever you did anything to the house, the spirits would get angry. You would see them around you as you vacuumed or cleaned. Cords would get wrapped around things that you were nowhere near, and other weird things would happen. Anytime you changed the house, the spirit activity would ramp up for the next few weeks. My brother, who was like 3 at the time, had imaginary friends he played with constantly. He would always say, "There are my friends Ted and Curly." He says now that he could actually see them. When we were moving out, things really got crazy. Once time we pulled up to the house, no one was home, and you could hear a loud, blood-curdling scream coming from the house. The kind of scream that you hear when something terrible was happening. This is when everyone in the house started seeing things and hearing stuff. It was like the ghosts were angry we were leaving. In the last night there, my dad decided to stay there one last night. He never believed us when we told him and always chalked it up to something else. That night he was on the couch and he heard a big bang on the wall. 1 bang, then 2 bangs, then suddenly it was like a mob of 100 people were banging on every wall in the house. It scared him so bad he left and went to the new house and told us all that he finally believes us about the place being haunted. Whenever I hear about haunted houses, it always reminds me of how haunted the house is that we lived in. These are just a few weird instances, but there were way more. The house was very dark and literally sucked the soul out of every one of us. I was very depressed and angry. My mom has several mental breakdowns that ended her in the hospital several times. My youngest brother, who the spirits affected the most, was a very disturbed child. My other brother was mean and angry all the time, and my dad was also angry and mean all the time. We later found out the man in the house before us used to beat his wife and was a very mean man, which I believe was the house causing it like it did with my family. When my family moved out, we instantly changed. My brothers are both fine and the sweetest people you would ever meet. My mom doesn't have mental health issues anymore. I've never been depressed since, and my dad has never been as mean to anyone as he was there. Whatever was in that house fed off negativity, and it is terrifying to look back on now. Sometimes I drive past the house, and I can feel that angry spirit still. I truly believe that whatever was in that house fed off our energy. I feel terrible for the family that lives in there now.
Experienced intense headaches and nausea, only near the Whaley house. Has anyone experienced something similar? I have never made a post like this before. However, I feel that I am now inclined to, in order to provide my experience, as well as try to find people who've had similar sensations arise during paranormal encounters. I went to the Whaley House in San Diego for the first time yesterday. This was my first ever haunted house tour, and I definitely sensed something. The tour focused on the Whaley family, specifically Thomas Whaley, who allegedly built the home over an infamous gallows site, also known as an execution ground. The tour included visits to 4 rooms: the courtroom, general store, dining room, and theater. My senses began in the general store. During this part of the tour, the guide focused on Thomas Whaley, the founder and head of the family. As I mentioned earlier, this was my first paranormal type tour, so I didn't know what to expect. That being said, I felt a strong headache come on in the general store. It felt as if all my energy was being drained from me. I also felt a crushing presence, almost as if someone or something was pressing down on the top of my head. All of this made me feel nauseous and fatigued. As we left the general store, those feelings began to ease. However, once we reached the indoor theater, I noticed a milder version of those sensations return, though nowhere near as intense as before. Eventually, when we left the house, I felt better. What really blew my mind was that I was drenched in sweat. Perhaps because I was so on edge, I didn't notice the heat, because honestly, I didn't even feel hot. The craziest part was that my girlfriend, who had been standing next to me the entire time, didn't even break a sweat. That definitely left me with some questions. After this tour, I told my girlfriend that I had to go back to the car. I was so drained and had to lie down. What interested me the most was that before this tour, I was full of energy and excitement, and now all of that zapped out of me within what would have been an hour-long tour. Here's the craziest part. We went on the Ghosts and Gravestones tour later that day, and as soon as I got close to the Whaley house, that same intense headache came back. I started feeling nauseous and fatigued all over again. I didn't even realize I was approaching the Whaley house until those sensations returned. My head was down, focused on the sidewalk. Since I'm a klutz and a chronic ankle roller, I made sure to keep an eye on the pavement to avoid an embarrassing moment on the tour. But as soon as I felt these sensations, I looked up and saw the house directly ahead of me. This tour never actually went inside the house, but we did get very close to it from the outside. That's when another strange thing happened. I still didn't feel that hot, but only the side of my face that was facing the house was drenched in sweat. To be specific, the right side of my face was facing the home, and only that side was dripping with sweat, while the left side remained sweat-dewed, but no dripping. As soon as we left the property, the nausea, fatigue, and headache gradually disappeared. This was, without a doubt, my first experience that I can't easily explain. I don't really know how to feel, but it has definitely left me with a new sense of fear. I experienced sensations unlike anything I've ever felt before, and they seemed to occur only when I was near the Whaley house.
My girlfriend warned me not to touch her vintage Ouija board. I laughed it off, but the next night something answered us, and it wasn't human. Growing up, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and one thing we were taught is that any paranormal phenomenon is the result of demonic activity, or thereby the result of demonic entities. Even though I am no longer part of the odd religion, deep down there is a fear of the paranormal, which has sparked an unquenched curiosity inside me regarding the supernatural. After I disposed my mind of the religious views of Jehovah's Witnesses, I turned into a staunch atheist, thinking only the physical reality before us is what exists, and nothing more is proven beyond speculation. I presumed that all paranormal phenomenon was some sort of mass psychosis that possessed millions or even billions of people, an over-attachment to the imagination and its creations. This was easy to believe because up until that point, I had never had a first-hand encounter with the unexplainable, the eerie, the unseen. My first ever experience happened upon me some years ago when I was 13 or 14. I remember distinctly waking up early in the morning and going to enjoy watching some sitcom while I devoured my daily mac and cheese. After watching for some 30 or 40 minutes, I heard a strange rustling in the corner of the room where a door was to another room. The door itself wobbled slightly, perhaps the result of the AC and nothing more. Not quite. Then the doorknob slowly turned before my eyes, and I watched as the door crept open over the course of 10 seconds. I was frozen in my chair and couldn't move for about 10 minutes. For years, I attributed this incident to my mind, a hallucination perhaps, or even an extended dreams where my mind recreated my whole morning routine. Not to dismiss any of this, but it felt real. I have never had hallucinations in my life, so it seems to me now that was unlikely. I met my love. For a long time, I thought I would never find a romantic partner. After asking out 5 girls in my first 2 semesters of college, I was about to give up. But I decided to try one more time, and I asked out a girl from my drawing class. She seemed like such a wonderful person, shy but also funny and easy to talk to. Long story short, we are now in a long-term relationship and plan on getting married after college. Anyway, I eventually found out that she has the ability to see ghosts on some occasions. She describes these ghosts in many different ways. Sometimes she sees orbs, sometimes full apparitions, the occasional demon, and even a humanoid creature crawling towards her on all 4s. If I were to witness these things, I would be institutionalized and unable to bear seeing such things. About a month ago, I was staying at her dad's, where she was also staying for the summer. We always stayed up late, either watching something, playing games, or just talking. On the 5th night, she mentioned that she had a vintage Ouija board, sparking my curiosity. I asked her if she wanted to bring it out, and she said she would. However, she would not touch it. She believes that if she mingles too far into attempts of communication with the otherworldly, that she could become consumed by dark entities. Fortunately, or unfortunately, she did say that I could play it, even though she would not. I started by placing both of my hands on the planchette and asking a simple question: are there any spirits in our presence? I felt a slight tingle in my arm and felt it being gently pulled toward the yes inscribed on the board. I started to slightly panic, and after it had guided me to the yes, I said goodbye and refused touching it again. The next night, me and her were both sitting on the couch, lightly making out, and in the hallway adjacent to the living room, we heard a man's voice calmly but sternly utter the word "no." She then removed her lips from mine, and I saw as her pupils dilated as she became aware of the otherworldly presence. She sat up and asked if I had heard what she did, and I of course told her that I had. I followed and also sat up and tried to calm her by caressing her cheek and told her I would keep her safe, even from that which I did not know and feared terribly. Then, only about a minute or so after hearing the voice, something slammed itself, or part of itself, against the couch on which we were sitting. She jumped to the other side before I had fully processed what had occurred. She later told me that she never had experienced a voice, perhaps an indication that I had brought something else into our presence, something neither of us had known before. I never believed stories about curses or spirits. Then a friend told me what happened to his uncle's family in a small village near Tingkang, Assam. He never asked me to believe him. He only said, "Write it down exactly as I told you." His uncle lived with his wife and 2 sons in a quiet house beside a vast tea garden. Life there was ordinary until one Thursday afternoon. An old beggar arrived at their bamboo gate asking for food. He was painfully thin, barefoot, with tangled gray hair and a dirty white cloth wrapped around his body. The family politely refused him because of an old village belief that nothing, especially food, rice, or salt, should be given away on a Thursday. The old man didn't argue. He simply sat beside the gate for almost an hour. He barely moved. He only watched the house. When he finally stood up to leave, he looked back once and smiled. Nothing more. That evening, while closing the gate, the family noticed something strange. 2 perfectly round holes had appeared beside the entrance, freshly dug, too neat to be animal burrows. His uncle quietly filled them with soil, and everyone forgot about them. That night, strange sounds came from the kitchen. Steel plates clinked together. Cupboards opened and closed. Glass jars scraped across wooden shelves. His uncle searched every room. Nothing. The following night, heavy footsteps crossed the bamboo veranda. Every time someone opened the door, silence. Their dog stopped going near the kitchen after sunset. Instead, it stood facing the tea garden, growling into complete darkness. Within days, the house no longer felt like home. One evening, the aunt entered the kitchen to make tea. The kettle slowly lifted off the stove by itself. It hovered in the air. Tea poured into a waiting glass. Then the kettle gently settled back onto the stove, as though invisible hands had placed it there. She fainted. Soon, everyone had their own terrifying experience. Doors opened by themselves. Cooking utensils changed places overnight. Someone whispered outside the windows after midnight. Whenever they rushed outside with lanterns, no one was there. The younger son laughed at all of it. He stayed awake, studying every night. Around 2 in the morning, he heard footsteps circling his chair, round and round. He refused to look up. The footsteps stopped directly behind him. Annoyed, he kicked his chair backwards and shouted, "If you're really here, stop hiding." Nothing answered. When he finally turned around, the room was empty, except for 2 fresh, wet footprints behind his chair. After that night, he never studied after dark again. The worst happened to his father. One night, he woke to see a long-haired figure lying beside his sleeping wife. Certain another man had entered the house, he grabbed an axe. Only when the lantern was lit did the figure disappear. His wife had been alone all along. From that night onward, he changed. He barely slept. He spoke to empty corners. Then he smashed every mirror inside the house. He claimed someone stood behind him every time he looked into one, not inside the room, only in the reflection. One misty morning before sunrise, he walked into the tea garden behind the house. Between the rows of tea bushes, something knelt with its back toward him. Its skin looked like wet gray ash. As he stepped closer, it slowly turned. It had no face, only smooth skin, and in the center of its chest, one enormous eye. The eye blinked once. He collapsed where he stood. The villagers found him burning with fever, repeating only one sentence, "It's still watching me." The elders believed a wandering spirit known as a Bira had entered the property. They called a Bez. The healer arrived carrying only a small cloth bag. The moment he entered the gate, he stopped. Without anyone mentioning the strange holes, he pointed toward the ground beside the entrance. It entered from here. Nobody had told him about the holes. The ritual began after midnight. Rice flour and mustard seeds were spread across the floor, while prayers echoed through the house. The air became unbearably heavy. Something ran barefoot across the roof, back and forth. Then silence. The Bez asked for a live black rooster. Holding it tightly, he shouted, "Tell me who sent you." The rooster struggled violently. Then it became completely still. Its voice changed. In a dry whisper unlike anything human, it said, "I was sent." Before anyone could understand the rest, its neck twisted violently. The bird dropped dead. The Bez ordered everyone to stay inside and never look outside. Moments later, something screamed from deep inside the tea garden. Not human, not animal, just one impossibly long cry that slowly faded into the darkness. The Bez quietly said, "It has gone." After that night, the footsteps stopped. The whispers vanished. Nothing ever moved again. The family continued living there for years, but the uncle was never the same. He slowly lost most of his hearing and insisted until the day he died that the eye he saw in the tea garden had never truly stopped watching him. The house still stands today. Children play there. The tea garden looks peaceful, but the older villagers still refuse to talk about that Thursday. And if you ask them why, they'll only tell you one thing. Some things don't break into a house. Sometimes they're invited in.